You guys have been, and I do appreciate you holding off for us. So, I'm not at this point. I'm not really seeing anything. So let's, yeah, Representative Amix.
I would make a motion to concur with the governor's recommendation for the Department of Labor for FY 2024 and FY 2025.
All right, seconded by Representative Riley. Any discussion on that? Not seeing any. So, all right. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. All right. We are done with Department of Labor. Sorry, was that worth the wait? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Well, actually, might have been better if it was today and not the other day. So, all right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with the Secretary of State. And so, Molly, yep, there's Molly. Secretary.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hoffman and members of the committee. My name is Molly Pratt. I'm a fiscal analyst with the Legislative Research Department, and I will be presenting the budget analysis for the Office of the Secretary of State. With me today is Jennifer Cook, the Assistant Secretary of State, as well as Sandy Tompkins and Andy Burlingham, both from the agency. The Office of the Secretary of State is created by Article 1 of the Kansas Constitution. The Secretary of State is charged with many responsibilities, including administering elections, collecting certain records of Kansas businesses, and publishing the official publications for the state of Kansas, including the Kansas Statutes Annotated and its supplements and the session laws of Kansas. To carry out its duties, the office is organized into 3 divisions. The Administration Division is responsible for providing operating services for the agency. The Business Services Division is primarily responsible for administering filings for Kansas business entities and the Uniform Commercial Code. And the Elections Division is primarily responsible for overseeing national and state elections, candidate filings for national and state offices, and assisting local election officers administer elections. Each division is tasked with administering a corresponding program that executes the agency's mission to provide excellent and efficient services to all Kansans. In addition, the Elections Division is responsible for the administration of the Help America Vote Act program, which was implemented by the agency to comply with the federal Help America Vote Act of 2002. On page 4, you will find a chart detailing the expenditures by category, as well as a breakdown of the state general funds and other funds within the agency. On occasion, the agency will request an SGF appropriation for costs associated with responsibilities that require substantial funding. For example, the 2023 legislature appropriated the agency $4.7 million SGF for fiscal year 2024 to implement 2023 Senate substitute for House Bill 2053, which authorizes one or both political parties in the state to hold a presidential preference primary in calendar year 2024. The agency also receives SGF matching funds from the legislature in order to remain compliant with federal HAVA provisions. In August 2020, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission awarded the agency a total of $4.9 million in grant monies for election security. The grant was contingent on the state providing a match of $984,984 SGF, or 20%, which was deposited into the Democracy Fund. The EAC granted the agency an additional $1 million in election security grants in both federal fiscal year 2022 and federal fiscal year 2023. The Information and Services Fee Fund allows the Office of the Secretary of State to charge and collect an information services fee. Per statute, all monies received by the agency are remitted to the state treasurer. On page 6, you will see a graph detailing the Technology Communication Fund. which was established to cover the cost of technology systems that support services provided by the agency, such as the electronic filing of business forms. The Technology Communication Fee Fund earns revenue through a technology communication fee. The revenue collected through the technology fee is to cover the cost of systems that support services provided pursuant to the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act. On page 7, you'll find the beginning of the fiscal year 2024 analysis. Subsequent to the 2023 session, no adjustments were made to the $10 million, including $4.7 million SGF, appropriated to the Office of the Secretary of State for fiscal year 2024. The agency submits a revised estimate of $7.6 million, all from special revenue funds. This represents an all funds decrease of $2.4 million, or 23.8% below the fiscal year 2024 approved amount, including a decrease of $4.7 million in SGF. The revised estimate includes an SGF reduction of $4.7 million, or 100% below the approved amount. The 2023 legislature appropriated the agency SGF funds in fiscal year 2024 to implement 2023 Senate Substitute for House Bill 2053, which authorizes one or both registered parties in the state to hold a presidential preference primary in 2024. However, the agency removed the $4.7 million in SGF from their revised estimate because, at the time of the budget submission in September, the agency had not received notice from either party that a presidential preference primary would be held in Kansas in calendar year 2024. The revised estimate also includes $1.6 million in special revenue funds for fees and other services in fiscal year 2024. The agency is requesting an increase of $1 million above the fiscal year 24 approved amount so that it can begin preparing for the expiration and replacement of the current statewide voter registration and election management system. The contract for the current system expires in January 2026. Federal law requires the state to have a centralized voter registration system. Also included in the estimate is $800,000 in special revenue funds for federal HAVA aid payments to local election officers in fiscal year 2024. The agency will use HAVA election security monies to provide grants to local election offices to enhance the security of the storage of voting equipment prior to the presidential preference primary, as well as to enhance the security of voting equipment while it is deployed during an election. The estimate also includes approximately $488,000 in all other adjustments. Approximately half of this amount is to account for an increase in salaries and wages, specifically an increase in employer contributions for fringe benefits. Other adjustments are attributable to increased costs for services such as printing and advertising, as well as the agency's purchase of software and other supplies. Also included within the estimate is 40.5 FTE positions, which is the same number of positions as the amount approved by the 2023 legislature. The governor recommends $12.3 million, including $4.7 million SGF, in expenditures and 40.5 FTE positions. This is an SGF increase of $4.7 million, or 100% above the agency's revised estimate. This is due to the agency's lapse of the same amount that was appropriated by the previous legislature to implement 2023 House Bill 2053. As I've said, the enacted legislation requires the agency to reimburse county election officers for costs associated with a presidential preference primary. In early December 2023, the agency learned that both registered political parties will hold a presidential preference primary in calendar year 2024. The governor's recommendation also includes 40.5 FTE positions, which is the same number as the agency's revised estimate. Chairman Hoffman, would you like me to continue on to fiscal year 2025?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be fine.
On page 10, you'll find the analysis for fiscal year 2025. The agency requests $7 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures for fiscal year 2025. This is a decrease of $633,142, or 8.3% below the fiscal year 2024 revised estimate. The request includes $90,646, all from special revenue funds, and one additional FTE position for the elections division. According to the agency, the analysts would make current election data and voter registration data, as well as historical data, and more accessible to voters. The data analysis would answer requests for specific data, as well as assist with administration of future elections. Absent the enhancement request, The request includes a decrease of $800,000 in base budget expenditures. The reduction is attributable to the agency's belief that by early fiscal year 2025, it will complete its goal to enhance the security of voting equipment in the state. Thus, the agency does not plan to provide federal HAVA aid payments to local election officers for fiscal year 2025. Also included within the request is 41.5 FTE positions, which is an increase of 1 FTE position above the fiscal year 2024 estimate due to the agency's plan to hire the election data analyst. And finally, the governor concurs with the agency's request of $7 million for fiscal year 2025. On page 12, you'll find a bit more detail about the supplemental and enhancement request. And the rest of the document details the various programs within the agency, but all of the totals are the same as on the front page. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
All right. Any questions? Representative Riley.
Thank you, Molly, for your presentation. That was great. So have we received a frequent asked questions statement back from this department yet?
I don't believe so at this time.
Yes, but
I don't believe so at this time. That is something the agency might be able to address, but I'd be happy to talk about
I just
it.
want to take a look at that when we get it. Thank you.
Actually, the agency sent it this morning, and I'll send it to the committee today.
Any other questions for Molly? Okay, thank you. All right, we have Assistant Secretary of State, Jennifer Cook. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good afternoon. Is that better? There we go. I think so. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Cook, Assistant Secretary of State. We appreciate the opportunity to provide an update to the committee on our budget and some of the initiatives that we are working on in the agency that tie into our budget. Molly did an excellent job, so I'll just touch on a few things and then certainly be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. A few key points to note in our budget, and as I said, things that relate to some of our performance measures. One of the goals that we are undertaking in the agency, and it's included in our narrative and in our budget, is in our publications division, which is part of our administration division, is an effort to modernize our regulatory review and approval process in the state through the implementation of an electronic regulation program. We are currently operating under a paper-based system, which has been in place since 1965. So we think that this is a great time to try and modernize that process a little bit. So we have been looking at that and seeing if we can implement a program electronically to streamline our process to help legislators and the public and state agencies track their regulations as they are moving through the process and maybe help that process work a little more efficiently. So we've just begun the review process and are potentially looking at an RFP for that. So we have noted that as a budget item that we're going to be working on in the next year. In our business services division, which is the largest division in our agency in terms of personnel and volume of filings, we process about 287,000 filings in 2023. One of the items that we have been working on for a number of years, I'm sure if you've heard the secretary speak about this, it's moving off of our AS400, which is our very antiquated computer system that has been doing a pretty good job for the last 30 years. So I'm very pleased to report that we have moved our business filings off of the AS400 as of just a week or so ago. So we're very excited about that. We're hoping that it provides a more streamlined and secure experience for our business filers. Also, along with that, and beginning this year, businesses will begin filing a biennial report with our office. Previously, they were required to file an annual report. So the goal of this legislation, which was approved in 2021, is to reduce the filing burden for our Kansas businesses. So they'll be required to file a report every 2 years instead of every year. So we're hopeful that will be an improvement. We're also very pleased that this modernization was achieved internally. We used internal IT resources and our existing staff to implement that modernization. In the elections division, as Molly noted, our primary role is to provide guidance to our county election officers on the administration of elections. We have 3 elections this year, one coming up pretty quick in March. And we'll be focused on providing guidance to the counties, helping them to ensure the security of our elections and continuing to provide enhanced training to our county election officials. And so to help with this, Molly touched on our HAVA funding. We administer the federal HAVA grants. Those are formula grants, which are designed to improve election administration. And then in recent years, there's been a increased focus on election security. So these funds are appropriated by Congress. We don't receive them every year. It's when Congress decides to provide an appropriation for HAVA. And Molly covered the last 3 or 4 years in which we have received HAVA funds. In the past few years, we've used our HAVA funds to invest in cybersecurity to support our counties. That has been a very successful program. All of our counties are participating, and it's something that will be continuing for future years. It's an ongoing effort to help our counties safeguard their security, the security of their election system. And to further support election security, last fall we announced a grant program to the counties to help them with physical security of securing their election equipment. As some of you know, some counties are fortunate and have very, very nice modern facilities. Some are in facilities that aren't quite as modern, aren't quite as conducive to storing equipment. So we announced this program to help counties provide different types of security, whether it's cameras and monitoring or, things just like locks on their doors or keypads to swipe who enters an area, also for transport of securing the transport of election equipment from the office to the polling place. We're very pleased 84 counties have requested funds. We had estimated $800,000 in our budget. Our grants are going to exceed that amount quite a bit, but we feel it's important to meet the needs of the counties for election security. So the total will probably be around 1.7 million, but that will cover the 84 county requests. And then finally, with respect to the use of our HAVA funds, several years ago, we launched a county certification program. So this is to provide in-depth training to our county election officials on all aspects of election administration. We're in our second or third tranche of courses for our county officials. We've had 150 participate so far, and we're going to continue that program going forward in future years as we have new county clerks come in and county election staff. And then finally, Molly touched on our request for a election data analyst in our elections division. Recognizing that there is a heightened increase in elections, we receive a number of different requests for data. And what we would like to be able to do is to meet those requests, to make information on our website more available and easily accessible by the public, by the legislature, by anybody who has an interest in seeing that data. So the $90,000 in there is accounts for salaries and wages for that position. Mr. Chairman, that's the conclusion of my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
All right, great. Thank you, Jennifer. So going to the grants, the 84, have those been announced?
They have not been announced. We have received requests from all the counties that the grant application period closed. So that closed back in November. So we know that the number of counties, we know the total amount of their requests, and we are working through with the counties. It's structured to be a reimbursement. So the state through HAVA will be providing 90%, and then the counties will match at 10%. So it's just reimbursement for whatever expenses they have that we would have approved.
So when will those be announced?
We're just trying to work through some final details. So I would think fairly soon, maybe the next few weeks, months,
So
next month.
if there's a way, if we could get a list of those,
Absolutely. We'd be happy to provide that.
then 1.7 million. Now that's, you said it's going to exceed your HAVA funds. How much have you gotten in total HAVA funds?
It won't exceed our HAVA funds. It will exceed what we budgeted, what we estimated. We estimated 800,000. This is the first time we've ever attempted a grant program like this. So we weren't quite sure what the level of interest and demand would be. So we took an estimate there, and we were pleasantly surprised by the level of interest that was out there. So we're in I think around 8 million total in HAVA funds. So this will in no way impact our overall HAVA in a negative way.
And those don't have to be expended before the election. Once you get them, you have to use them on certain things, but you just have them.
Yes, sir. That is, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We do have a timeline. Usually, I think it's about a 3 to 4 year timeline. Some differ. So we track that. So we make sure we expend the funds within the timeline allotted by HAVA. But we don't have to expend that within a year in state purposes.
And then, so some of that 8 million will be used for the security or for the training. Will some of that be used for, where was it, the new equipment that you're refreshing all the equipment?
Correct. For the statewide voter registration system, that contract expires in January of 26. So we're starting that process now to look at what a new system may look like. So there are sort of two pots of HAVA funding. There's a pot that's more directed for kind of generic election administration. Then there's another one that's directed very explicitly for election security. So we will look at using the election administration portion for our voter registration database. We may be able to use some of the security money. I think that's a question we haven't quite resolved yet, but we would absolutely anticipate using some of our HAVA funding for that. The final cost of that is going to be fairly expensive. So that may be a discussion that we have with you in future years.
Okay. And then a couple more questions here. So the modernization, getting away from the AS400, did you move to the statewide Unisys system, or did you the statewide cloud system?
No, we designed a system internally that we are using. So our IT staff designed it for us. We started it, probably 3.5, 4 years ago.
So you still have your own data?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
And then I was just looking at your technology communications fee fund and your information service fee fund. Those are growing. And so are those fees that can be looked at as far as maybe lowered if need be, or to kind of maybe balance that out? Or is that something that it needs to be growing that much?
So, Mr. Chairman, that is actually something we're going to be looking at. One of the reasons that we haven't looked at it yet is because with the implementation of biennial filing, we feel pretty confident in where we're going to end up, but we want to give it a year in the new system just to make sure that we're on target. With respect to how our fees are set, our fees have not been adjusted in 20 years, and so the growth that we see in both of those funds is a result of the number of new filings, new businesses that are coming into the state. So we are very much open to looking at those, and it is something that we absolutely have an intention to do. On average, we collect around $15, give or take, when there are always some exceptions, per filing. So we can make some adjustments there, and that is something that we're going to be looking at.
And those are something you can do. You don't have to have, they're not set in statute.
Yes, that is correct. In almost all of our fees, particularly on the business services side, there's a portion of our fee that comes to SGF, and then there's a portion that is retained by the agency to fund operations.
Okay. And then my last question, the the primary, the 4.7 million for the primary. You guys took it out and then the governor added it back in for March, right? That's to help with the March primary.
Yes, that's correct.
It did the candidates have to pay an amount to get in? Because I know when we did the caucus before, they had to pay quite a bit of money to get into it.
Yes, every candidate who filed paid $10,000, and that came to the SGF.
Okay, so it was just 10,000.
Yes.
All right, Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Jennifer, for your thing. I just had some questions on your performance-based budget. So I'm just going down through the goals. I just look at the administration one first. And so one of the ones that we've just been discussing is, goal B, the migration off the AS 400. And so then I jump down to your over here to your outcomes, and you have a status. I think it was 75%. Is that where I was at? Agency system upgrade, is that line or the B? And that, but you're proposing that by 2025, the 1 means 100%, right? You should be 100% off by that time.
Yes.
So on all of these across the board, I could ask the same question. So what did your people do to get there?
So
It wasn't magic.
So what we did is we our internal IT staff designed a new system for us to move our current filings, which are our business filings, which are sitting on the AS 400, which is an old C prompt green screen. So we have migrated that to our new filing system, which is now up and running on our website. So that new system, much like the AS400, is used by our staff internally to process filings and is also used by the public to submit their filings.
Right. But so Jennifer, I guess where I'm going from is on all 4 of these, I don't see any what I would call output goals, which is, your people work so many hours, they got so much done, or on the document retention, they did so much. Or so you've got the end results, and it's not percentages. I mean, people would have to redefine that, and look at percentages. But like online store, well, you could probably say, we handled so many transactions in order to get that, so therefore our online store is providing so many products, so many dollars, right? So all I would say, and I went back over the business services, I went to elections, each one of your ones, you have what happened, but you don't have any output of what your people did to provide to that goal. So the goal is you did this and you handled so many transactions, your people answered so many telephone calls, they did this or they did that in order to get to the final thing that you're giving us, which is your outcomes. You see what I mean? So in the future, could you work on that as far as trying to get us to that point? I'm looking at a couple of those lines where, you're done. You've accomplished your goal. And so therefore those will probably go off. And now are you going to have a new goal that will replace that goal? Like when you get off the AS 400, then you're going to have another goal but that goal needs to be something that's relevant for that division, like administration, a goal for that administration, that kind of thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Jennifer, thank you for being here today. Just a quick question about the new data analyst position. And I appreciate the comment about making information more accessible to voters and these special data that's requested. And it's less than user-friendly right now. Is that all being done now through open records request, or how's that being handled?
Yes, that's correct. Oftentimes it comes through an open records request, and some of those are fairly routine. also the voter registration database is something that people will request and use, and oftentimes that data is there's a lot of that data. It's very hard to manage your way through. So our thought is to look at some of the common things that people ask for, different types of breakdowns, different types of comparisons of data, and then to make those available based on what we know people ask for. And then if there are requests that are outside of that, make it easier for us to provide and respond to those types of more unusual requests.
I appreciate that, and the fact that, we are asking for a new position here, but if we're doing it for the specific purpose of being able to provide information to the public, that makes it all worthwhile. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, fiber security, how strong are you guys on that?
We are very strong on cybersecurity. It is a high priority for the agency, given the nature of the work that we do. So we work both with federal partners at CISA, which I think has provided presentation to the Legislature Modernization Committee recently. We also work with our local security partners as well. And then we work with some third-party providers to make sure we have appropriate cybersecurity measures in place.
You gave me the answer I thought I would get. Can I ask you, the judicial system, would you be using the same fiber security, or are they different?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I would say I don't believe so, but I'm not the tech person, so I'm not sure that I could answer that 100%. But I do not believe we are using the same system, but that's something I would have to confirm.
Yeah, I was just wondering, there's such a great cost that I was wondering if people could come together and use the same system or not. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, going back to not necessarily that, but to the new computer database. Did you look at possibly going to our cloud or to the state's cloud? Was that not something you looked at?
I believe we may have. I will have to say it was a few years ago, so I don't remember exactly how the decision came about there.
Yeah, and
but I
started it 3 or 4 years ago, we weren't there yet on the state level anyway. So yeah, it may have been. It's just something. I'm assuming you have and you don't have to disclose where or whatever, but I'm assuming that there's a off-site backup system somewhere.
Yes, there is.
Any other questions? Oh, how much is the primary gonna cost?
We have budgeted 4.7. We believe we will come in at 4.7 or perhaps less than that.
So that's about what you think it's gonna cost?
It is. That's what we estimated last year.
You can't use any of the HAVA money for that?
No, I don't believe so. This is actually for administering elections. So we believe that, and there's a statutory provision as well with respect to reimbursement for those costs.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, committee, we will close the hearing on Secretary of State. Go to Office of Administrative Hearings. Martin, you could give us an analysis of their budget.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Committee. Glad to be back. We're talking about the Office of Administrative Hearings. They provide hearing services for a large number of the state agencies, and beginning in FY24, you can add the Governmental Ethics Commission to that list. They also provide hearing services for about 36 different counties within the state. The next few pages just give you a highlight. Their budget is completely off budget. They're considered off budget expenditures so that the expenditures are not double counted between the agencies they provide services for and within administrative hearings. Budget analysis begins on page 5. So the 23 legislature approved a budget of 1.9 million, all from the Administrative Hearings Fund. And there were no subsequent changes made to that. So the agency submits a revised estimate of 1.9 million, all from the Administrative Hearings Fund, which is the same as the approved amount. They also have 14 FTE positions, which is the same as the approved number. The agency does not request any changes to the amount approved by the 23 legislature. However, there was a small shift in their base budget. There was an increase in salaries and wages of $2,600 and a decrease in commodities for the same amount. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate of 1.9 million and 14 FTE positions and does not recommend any changes. And I can stand for questions on FY24. Sure. FY25 begins on page 7. So the agency requests operating expenditures of 2.1 million, all from the Administrative Office Hearings Fund. This is an increase of $178,782, and this is due to the second half of the pay parity increase for the administrative law judges that you approved last year. The request includes 14 FTE positions, which is the same as their revised estimate for 24. And the governor concurs with the agency's request. And they have one vacancy.
All right. Any questions for Martin? All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate it. All right, we have Lauren Snell with us. He's the acting director and administrative law judge, and I think he was acting director last year. So is that getting close to being full-time director?
If you find out, if you let me know, I'd be happy to hear from someone.
Okay.
No, I don't know what the status of that is. And at this particular point in time, no harm, no foul. As long as I can continue to do the work that they've asked me to do, I don't mind having an extra word in front of my director title. It doesn't bother me that much.
Is that the one FTE? Is that the vacant FTE?
Yes, and actually, and so first of all, I just want to say thank you, Chairman Hoffman and the rest of the committee, for giving me the opportunity to come in and visit with you again. I hope you're going to find that I'm not going to talk nearly as much as I did last year, which, usually when an attorney says that, buckle up, because that means it's going to be a lot worse. But in reality, I really do hope that's the case, because you guys know a lot about us already. I made a point of making sure of that last year, and really not a whole lot has changed as far as what we do or how we do it or the approach that we're taking. As for that one FTE position, yes, it's still the position that I had when I was the ALJ before I became the acting director. I actually have a plan in place because I've decided just to move on with my plan. I do have a plan. We've started instituting that plan in other areas, but I've had to hold off just a little bit because of the fact the legislature's in town and just making sure that I can coordinate things with the governor's office in order to get that taken care of. But the goal is by the end of this fiscal year, I will have that position filled as far as the ALJ position. And then we're going to do some modifications, I think, with a couple of other positions that we have as well. So it all plays out, and I promise I won't take more than 14 FTEs. And hopefully by the end of it, it's all going to cost less than what it's currently budgeted for by the time I'm done. And so, with that, I would say it's been because, let's see, I took over in May of 2023. So I actually took over in fiscal year 2023. I'm sitting here just playing it out in my head. No, actually, I think I took over in May of 2022. Actually, I take that back. And so I finished up my first full year during the legislative session last year, and have had an opportunity to kind of really focus on what we wanted to do, what we wanted to achieve. And we've been able to accomplish a lot of that. We've gone through and we've looked at a lot of cases that were kind of holdover cases that weren't getting, that had lost traction for some reason or another and hadn't gotten decided, or had been decided, but a decision hadn't been written. And so we took care of a lot of that. As a result, it kind of skewed some of our numbers for this year because we were getting rid of some things that some old baggage that we needed to get resolved and taken care of. But in the process, I think we've got ourselves positioned in a much better way for the future. And I'm proud of the folks that we have over there and the direction that we're going. I know that I completed the frequently asked questions because I submitted that to Martin yesterday. It's actually part of the testimony. I incorporated it into the testimony so that it's all there. And so you should have all those responses. I also included a copy of our budget narrative so that you could see the information that we had submitted to the Division of Budget when we actually made this initial request. And you could kind of see some of the thought process that went into that so that we were as transparent as we possibly could be with you. And I guess before I stand for questions, I would again just thank you for the support that we got last year as far as taking care of the pay disparity. We have started that and we hope to finish implementing that in July of 2024 and have all of that in place. And so so with that, I'm going to stop talking and answer any questions that any of you might have for me.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Now, if I remember rightly, because of that pay plan, we didn't include you in the overall pay plan. Is that right? Or
correct? The ALJs were okay. So yes and no. The administrative law judges were not included in the overall statewide 5% or whatever it ended up being pay increase. But the other staff within the office were.
Okay.
So we were able to get them taken care of, which I was kind of concerned about because I know it kind of had tunnel vision with my focus on getting those ALJs taken care of, administrative law judges.
Sure.
But they were included as part of the overall statewide increase, and so they were taken care of as well.
And you guys weren't included in the package that of the overall package of judges as far as the new pay that's statutory pay.
Correct. We are not tied into that, and quite frankly, don't want to be.
Okay. All right. So just keep that in mind we'll keep that in mind when we get ready to do our package this year. As far as it won't happen here, but there'll be some package probably in appropriations. Right. Any other questions? Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lauren, appreciate you being here. I've been through a different thing, but I didn't get a chance to look at the frequent questions. But so going back to the same thing that I had a discussion with previous budget folks that were here on this process of looking at the budgets. So, and I think you've probably answered your own question here, but one of your goals, was, and again, since you're just really digging into this, you might probably want to change some of these things, but deliver administrative due process for cases within a time frame specified by applicable law. That sounds like a lawyer talking right there. But again, I see outcomes, but I don't see any outputs. And so I could, pull into your level of line item for outputs. I could just give you a recommendation. Well, how many constituents did you work with? How many cases, how many judges, how many decisions? And then based on that, then you're going to get your average amount of cases per judge. You're going to get your average amount of days per decision. You're going to get your carryover. Does that make any sense to you? So there's that gap there of what you did or your people did that got you to your outcomes. So how many constituents did you help? How many cases did you have? How many judges? How many decisions? See, that would be your output. That's what your people did. That was the work that you did. And then you have your answers, which is, here's your amount of average cases per judge. Well, it looks really good. You're getting, less and less average, and that looks right. But I'm just saying, one step gets to the other, and you don't have outputs. So I'm just saying, I think about that and work on that. I'd rather you do what you're doing right now and cleaning up the cases that you have. I'm just saying, if you're working on this performance-based budget for next year, kind of go back and look at what your outputs are, you know. Here's how many constituents that we helped. Here's how many judges we had. Here's how many cases we had. Those would be things that you can, that you put into it. Yes.
And I guess, and I don't mean to come across as not being appreciative of the suggestions that you're getting. I think I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that because, for instance, and I know that there were some edits that we got that I had responded to with regards to the performance-based budget measures and outcomes. I mean, right now, for instance, the number of appeals filed, that is the number of constituents that we deal with. So, I mean, if you are an individual that has an action taken against you by a state agency and you want to appeal that, you file that with our office. And everything that gets filed with our office, everything gets sent requesting an appeal, as long as it falls within our jurisdiction, which is what I explained in there. There are some things that we don't handle. We don't handle DUI appeals. For instance, DUI suspension of driver's license appeals for refusal to take a breathalyzer, that type of thing. We don't handle the workers' comp stuff, for instance. So if it falls within what we handle, then it gets filed. So for instance, looking at,
I guess where I'm going with that, and again, not trying to do a debate here or anything.
no, and I know, and I'm just trying to I want to make sure I can give you what you want.
So 4 and 5 probably should be some of your output measures. If you move them up into an output measure, you don't have any output measures. I'm just trying to define that a little more for you, right? So you have things that are in there that says what you did and how much work you did. That would be an output measure.
Okay.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
And then the outcome of the work that you did is, well, here's your average cases, da, da, da. So you got them all combined together. I was just adding, how many number of, and you did a better job of, catching all that, but, number of decisions, number of judges, So in other words, do the algebraic thing of this is X, this is Y, and so therefore there's equals Z, which is the outcomes. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. I mean, I know you're focusing on something else right now. Just break that down for us a little bit. I think it would give us a little bit better picture of where you're doing and what you're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wasn't trying to, I was trying to I was making sure that I was on the same page because I don't want to come back here next year and then you're going, well, wait a second. I told you last year. I usually try to make sure I listen pretty well and take advice to heart. So I will go back and work on those. We try. Some judges.
Yeah. Any other questions for Lauren? Yep. I appreciate what you're doing at the agency, and it sounds like maybe next year we might have some surprises in the budget as far as maybe it being lower or however, but appreciate it.
I mean, at the very least, my goal has been since this, I think we went up a little bit this year. And again, that was in part because we had
Pay increase partly.
The pay increase. And even then beyond that for fiscal year 25, I only asked for $40,000 more than what we had gotten that wasn't pay increase. And I've been trying to make sure we keep that. I don't want to see, there's no need for me to go increasing spending exponentially for any reason other than to cover what we need to cover. And so far we've been lucky. We haven't had any unplanned for costs, so we've been able to maintain what we need. So, and we appreciate the support we get from the legislature. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. If there's no other questions, then appreciate it, Lauren.
Thanks.
That we will close the hearing on the Office of Administrative Hearings. So tomorrow, Sharday, remind me what we have tomorrow. Oh yeah, that's right. Judicial and Judicial Council and Insurance. That's right. And those, buckle up. That'll be a pretty full day with, especially with the judicial. So yeah, you might need a big old clock right in front of me. Yeah. No, so, but I'm getting you out here early today, see, so that banks time for tomorrow. That's not how it works? No. We did it already. We did it at the, yes, I'm sorry, we did already. Before we go, just make sure I ask, is there any bill introductions? Bill introductions? So, all right. Did I? All right. We are adjourned.